Greetings, future scholars of America. Mr. Barfield here with another grammar video. Now, in a previous video about subordinate clauses, I explained that there's three different types of subordinate clauses, or they can be classified in three different ways: adjective, adverb, or noun clauses. We're going to go into more depth about each of them in their own video. Today's topic is adjective clauses. Now, I personally find this topic and section of grammar to be a little bit more challenging than others. So if you get confused, make sure that you take good notes and also come to class prepared with questions about anything that confuses you. Okay? So, adjective clauses, the type of subordinate clause that modifies or describes a noun or a pronoun in the main clause of the complex sentence. And it's pretty easy to spot because it normally follows the word that it modifies. Let's give an example. The hikers who reached the peak were overjoyed. The subordinate clause, who reached the peak, describes hikers, which is a noun, the simple subject, in the main clause. Because this describes a noun, that makes it an adjective clause. Usually they're introduced by something called a relative pronoun, and here's a bunch of different examples of what relative pronouns can look like. Now, these relative pronouns may function as the subject of the clause or they may not. In this example above, who is the subject of this clause? Reached the peak is the predicate. But in this example, the relative pronoun is when and the subject is we. I will always remember the time when we hiked the long trail in Vermont. This whole subordinate clause describes a time, which is a noun. I had so many blisters that covered my feet. If you guessed that the relative pronoun in this sentence is that, you'd be correct. And it is functioning as the subject because it comes right before the predicate, covered. An adjective clause can be essential or non-essential to the overall meaning of the sentence. Essential clauses are also known as restrictive clauses, and non-essential are known as non-restrictive clauses as well. Here's an example of an essential one. If you have an essential adjective clause, then you cannot take it out of the sentence without completely altering the meaning of the sentence. It still makes grammatical sense, but the meaning changes completely. Okay? So, one characteristic that many Native American tribes had in common was a love of dancing. Can you spot the subordinate adjective clause? It is right here. That many Native American tribes had in common. The subject is tribes, the predicate had, the relative pronoun that introduces it, that. And this whole thing describes characteristic. Now, if you take it out of the sentence, you have one characteristic was a love of dancing. That sentence is completely different. It's way more vague. We don't know what it's talking about. So in this case, the adjective clause is essential to the overall meaning. Now, a non-essential clause, you'll know it's non-essential because it's separated by commas, which means just like in appositives, you can take it out and the overall meaning wouldn't really change. It's adding information that's not essential to knowing the overall meaning of the sentence. In the Southwest, comma, where water is scarce, comma, the Pueblo people performed rain dances. Okay? If you took this out, you would have, in the Southwest, the Pueblo people performed rain dances. Still makes sense. Where water is scarce is adding information, but not essential information. Where is your relative pronoun? Water is your simple subject, and is your simple predicate. This all describes the noun Southwest. Note, non-essential commas must always be separated by commas from the rest of the sentence. All right, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.